The alarm klaxon screamed across the Galactic Council station like dying metal birds. Ambassador Sci-Fi of the crystalline hegemony dropped his morning nutrition cube with a wet splat, as red warning lights bathed the diplomatic quarters in blood-colored shadows. All representatives to Emergency Assembly Hall 7 immediately. The station's AI announced in 17 languages simultaneously. Priority Alpha threat detected. This is not a drill. Sci-Fi's for crystalline eyes rotated independently as he processed the announcement in his 3 centuries of diplomatic service. He had never heard a Priority Alpha alert. Such threats were theoretical, the kind that could end civilizations. Not just wars. The massive double doors of Assembly Hall 7 hissed open, revealing a sight that made even the most seasoned diplomats pause. The circular chamber, normally a place of measured debate and careful protocol, buzzed with frantic energy. Representatives from 47 different species filled the tiered seating, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, telepathic static, and translated speech. At the center of the chamber stood Director Kexler, the station's military commander. His thick, gray skin was darker than usual, a sure sign of stress in his species. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed what appeared to be a small, unremarkable blue-green planet. Distinguished representatives, Kexler began, his voice cutting through the chaos with practiced authority. 47 hours ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected an anomaly in the Outer Rim territories. What you see before you is the planet designated as Sol 3, also known to its inhabitants as Earth. A ripple of confused murmurs spread through the assembly. Sci-Fi leaned forward, his crystalline structure refracting the holographic light into rainbow patterns. Earth was a backwater world, barely qualifying for class for civilization status. What could possibly, the anomaly, Kexler continued, is not the planet itself, but its dominant species, the humans. The hologram shifted, showing a bipedal creature with pale skin and dark hair. It stood in what appeared to be a primitive dwelling, holding a flat, circular object over an open flame. Observe, Kexler said grimly. The human in the hologram did something that made every being in the chamber freeze. It took the flat object, which was now steaming in golden brown, and placed it on a plate. Then it retrieved a small container and poured a dark, viscous liquid over the flat object. Finally, it cut the object into triangular pieces with a primitive metal tool and began to consume it. The silence in the chamber was absolute. By the 7 suns, whispered Ambassador Rilvia of the Hive Collective, her 6 arms trembling. What is it doing? Kexler's expression was grim. According to our xenobiological analysis team, the human is consuming what they call a pancake with something called syrup. The pancake appears to be made from ground plant seeds, mixed with liquid and heated until it solidifies. That's impossible, declared High Counselor Vextron of the Silicon Assembly, his metallic voice ringing with disbelief. No sentient species would voluntarily consume plant matter that has been chemically altered through heat application. The nutritional efficiency would be catastrophically low. The hologram continued playing. The human finished consuming the pancake and began to prepare another flat object, this one made from crushed fruit and the same plant seed mixture. The being then proceeded to consume this as well, occasionally making sounds that their translation matrices interpreted as expressions of pleasure. There's more, Kexler said, his voice barely above a whisper. Show them recording Delta 7. The hologram shifted to show a different human in a different location. This one was younger, with longer hair, and was engaged in an activity that defied all known laws of rational behavior. The human was combining the crushed fruit mixture with what appeared to be fermented plant juice, tree nuts, and some kind of processed dairy product from an animal. A smoothie, Kexler announced. They call it a smoothie, and they consume it voluntarily. For pleasure, the chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives began shouting, clicking, and telepathically projecting their horror and confusion. Ambassador Sci-Fi felt his crystalline structure begin to resonate with stress harmonics. Order. Kexler bellowed, order. There is more you must see. The noise died down, But the tension remained thick enough to taste, assuming you weren't human enough to enjoy such an experience. Our monitoring has revealed that this behavior is not isolated, Kexler continued. Humans across their entire planet engage in similar activities. They heat plant matter and consume it. They combine incompatible organic compounds and find the results pleasant. He paused, as if gathering strength for what he was about to say. They even consume the heated leaves of plants in liquid form and claim it helps them think more clearly. Coffee, whispered Dr. Synthara, the station's chief xenobiologist. Her tentacles were pale with shock. They call it coffee, and tea, and hot chocolate, by the void. They have hundreds of different ways to heat plant matter and consume it. The revelation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every species in the galaxy had achieved sentience by following the same basic principles: efficient nutrition, logical resource allocation, and the fundamental understanding that food was fuel. Nothing more. The idea that a species could achieve space travel while voluntarily consuming suboptimal nutrition was not just unlikely. It was theoretically impossible. How advanced are they? Asked Ambassador Merton of the Quantum Collective, his energy form flickering with nervous patterns. That's the problem, Kexler replied. They're more advanced than they should be. They've achieved controlled nuclear fusion, limited faster than light communication, in their military capabilities. He gestured to the hologram, which now showed various human settlements. They've mastered warfare to a degree that frankly terrifies our strategic analysis. Division. But they heat their food, Zeftai said, his voice cracking with confusion. They voluntarily decrease nutritional efficiency for what? Taste? Pleasure? These concepts don't even translate properly into most of our languages. The implications are staggering, Dr. Synthara added, her tentacles writhing with agitation. If humans can achieve this level of technological advancement while operating under such a massive disadvantage, what are they actually capable of when they're not handicapping themselves? The chamber fell silent again as the weight of this realization settled over the assembly. A species that could reach for the stars while deliberately making their survival more difficult was not just an anomaly, it was a paradigm shift that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligent life. There's something else, Kexler said quietly, something we discovered just 6 hours ago. The hologram shifted to show a human dwelling. Inside, a small human was sitting at a table, a concerned-looking larger human beside it. The small human was pushing away a plate of what appeared to be perfectly rational nutrition pellets. The young human is refusing to consume optimal nutrition, Kexler explained, and the adult human is negotiating with it. The assembly watched in stunned silence as the adult human retrieved a different plate. This one contained small, tube-shaped objects covered in a red, liquid substance. Hot dogs. Dr. Synthara whispered. Processed meat tubes and heated, processed plant matter casings, covered in fermented plant acids and sugar. The small human immediately began consuming the hot dogs with apparent enthusiasm. They're breeding, Kexler announced. The humans are successfully reproducing and raising offspring, while maintaining these impossible dietary habits. Their population is approaching 8 billion individuals. The silence that followed was the kind that precedes either enlightenment or complete mental breakdown. Director. Ambassador Zeftai said slowly, "What exactly are you asking us to do?" Kexler's expression was grave. Intelligence suggests that human exploratory vessels may reach the edge of our territory within the next 50 standard years. When they do, they will encounter civilizations that have never seen anything like them, species that have built their entire understanding of intelligence and progress on the fundamental assumption that rational beings don't voluntarily heat their food. And I believe we need to decide whether humans represent an existential threat to the established order of galactic civilization, or if they're about to teach us something we never knew we needed to learn. The hologram flickered off, leaving the assembly in darkness broken only by the emergency lighting. In that dim red glow, 47 different species contemplated the same impossible question. What do you do when everything you thought you knew about intelligence turns out to be wrong? As if summoned by their collective confusion, the hologram flickered back to life. This time, it showed a human family gathered around a table. They were consuming heated plant matter, processed animal products, and fermented fruits while making sounds that translated as laughter. They looked happy, and somehow, that was the most terrifying thing of all. Chapter 2. The Pancake Protocol Stir. Synthara hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her research laboratory aboard the Galactic Council station hummed with activity as her team of xenobiologists worked frantically to understand the impossible data streaming in from their observation posts near Earth. "Professor, you need to see this," called her assistant, a young Nextary whose scales were flashing rapid blue patterns of excitement and confusion. "The humans are doing something new." Synthara floated over to the monitoring station, her tentacles arranging themselves into a configuration that helped her process complex information. The holographic display showed a human settlement during what their analysis indicated was the early morning period. "Watch the bipedal entity in the lower left quadrant," her assistant said, manipulating the display controls. The human in question was engaging in what appeared to be a ritual of some kind. It had arranged multiple heated plant matter discs in a circular pattern on a flat surface. Then it retrieved a substance that their chemical analysis identified as processed sugar, combined with synthetic compounds that serve no nutritional purpose whatsoever. "Are those colors?" Synthara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Artificial pigments?" confirmed Dr. Krelvix, the team's biochemist. His insectoid form was rigid with concentration as he read from his analysis tablet. "The humans are applying colored, nutritionally void substances to their food in specific patterns. Look at this one." The display zoomed in on the human's work. The being was carefully applying different colored substances to create what could only be described as a visual representation of a star system, complete with orbital paths and celestial bodies. It's decorative," Synthara realized. "They're creating art on their food. But why?" Dr. Krelvik's compound eyes were focused so intently on the display that Synthara worried he might injure himself. The caloric expenditure required to create these patterns far exceeds any possible nutritional benefit. In fact, the added substances actually decrease the food's nutritional value. "Professor," another assistant called out, "you need to see feed Gamma 12. The humans are doing something with fire." Synthara's tentacles went rigid. Fire was one of the most dangerous forces in the universe. Every intelligent species learned to control it, respect it, and use it only when absolutely necessary. The idea that humans would voluntarily bring fire near their food was told by the void. She breathed. The new feed showed a human standing in front of a large metal structure that was generating controlled flame. But instead of using the fire for industry or defense, the human was holding food directly over the flames. The being was actually cooking the food while it watched, turning it at regular intervals to ensure even heat distribution. "They're not just heating their food," Dr. Krelvik said, his voice hollow with shock. "They're standing there, watching it heat, and they appear to be enjoying the process." "That's not the strangest part," the assistant added, manipulating the display to show a wider view. "Look at the gathering patterns." The camera pulled back to reveal something that made every being in the laboratory freeze. Multiple humans had assembled around the fire-cooking human. They were standing in a circle, making the sound patterns that translated as conversation and laughter. And they were all watching the food cook together. "It's social," Synthara whispered. "They're turning food preparation into a social gathering." "Professor," Dr. Krelvik said carefully, "I need to show you something from our sociological analysis division." He activated a new display that showed a compilation of human food preparation activities from across their planet. The images were overwhelming. Humans gathering in groups to heat various plant and animal matter. Humans teaching smaller humans how to combine ingredients. Humans sharing food preparation techniques across vast distances using their primitive communication networks. According to our analysis, Dr. Krelvix continued, approximately 67% of human recreational activities involve food preparation, food consumption, or discussion of food. They have developed over 40,000 distinct methods for heating, combining, and consuming various organic materials. 40,000. Synthar repeated numbly, and they're creating new ones constantly. Our monitoring algorithms detect an average of 12 new food preparation techniques being developed and shared across their communication networks every standard day. Synthar felt her tentacles beginning to tremble. Show me their most efficient nutrition delivery system. Dr. Krelvix hesitated. Professor, I don't think, show me. The display shifted to show what appeared to be the most advanced human nutrition facility they had observed. The expectation was that it would be clean, efficient, and focused on optimal nutritional delivery. Instead, the facility was filled with humans engaged in what could only be described as nutritional chaos. They call it a restaurant, Dr. Krelvix explained. Humans travel to these facilities specifically to consume food that has been prepared by other humans using methods that prioritize taste, presentation, and something they call ambience over nutritional efficiency. The scene showed humans sitting at individual tables, consuming various heated and processed foods while making social sounds. Some were consuming liquids that their analysis showed contained substances that actually impaired cognitive function. They're voluntarily impairing their judgment while consuming suboptimal nutrition, Synthara said, her voice flat with disbelief. And they're paying resources to do it. Professor, there's more. More? The humans who prepare food for other humans, they're considered skilled professionals. They undergo training for years to learn how to make food that other humans find pleasant to consume. The most skilled among them are treated as celebrities. Synthara's tentacles went completely limp. They've professionalized in efficiency, and they've created an entire economic system around it. Billions of their currency units are exchanged daily for food that has been deliberately made less nutritious for the sake of taste and presentation. The laboratory fell silent except for the hum of monitoring equipment. Every being present was trying to process information that challenged the fundamental assumptions of rational behavior. Director Kexler needs to see this, Synthara said. Finally, all of it, Professor, her assistant said quietly. There's something else. Something we discovered in the last few hours. Synthara wasn't sure she could handle another revelation about human behavior, but she nodded for him to continue. The humans are beginning to develop faster than light travel capabilities, but according to our analysis, they're not planning to use it primarily for exploration or resource gathering. What are they planning to use it for? Food trade. They want to share their food preparation techniques with other species. They're actually excited about the possibility of learning new ways to make their nutrition even less efficient. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Dr. Krelvix's tablet hitting the floor. As his grip failed him, contact Director Kexler, Synthara said. Tell him we need to convene an emergency session of the Xenological Ethics Committee. And tell him, she paused, trying to find words for the impossible. Tell him that everything we thought we knew about the relationship between intelligence and survival behavior is wrong. As her assistant rushed to make the communication, Synthara looked back at the displays showing humans across their planet, engaging in thousands of different food-related activities. They were heating, mixing, decorating, sharing, and celebrating the consumption of deliberately inefficient nutrition. And somehow, impossibly, they were thriving. The thought that terrified her most was a simple one. If humans could achieve this level of technological advancement while spending 67% of their recreational time on suboptimal nutrition activities, what would they be capable of if they ever decided to become actually efficient? The answer, she realized, was something the galaxy was completely unprepared for. Chapter 3 The Breakfast Paradox. The emergency session of the Xenological Ethics Committee convened in the most secure chamber aboard the Galactic Council Station, the circular room, normally used for the most sensitive diplomatic discussions, now housed the finest minds from 17 different species, all struggling to comprehend a single, impossible truth about humanity. Committee Chair Vextel, an ancient being whose species had achieved sentience when most of the galaxy was still cooling stellar dust, called the session to order with a sound that resonated through dimensions. His 3,000-year-old voice carried the weight of civilizations. Colleagues, he began. We face an unprecedented situation. The data Dr. Synthara has presented challenges not just our understanding of human behavior, but our fundamental assumptions about the nature of intelligence itself. Dr. Synthara activated the central holographic display, showing a compilation of human food-related activities that had taken her team for days to assemble. The images were overwhelming in their scope and variety. What you're seeing, she explained, represents approximately 0.03% of human food preparation activities observed in the last standard week. The complete dataset would require 17 hours to view at normal speed. Committee member Zilthara, a being composed entirely of organized energy, flickered with patterns of confusion. Dr. Synthara, surely there must be some underlying efficiency we're missing. Perhaps these activities serve some purpose we haven't identified? That's what we thought initially, Synthara replied. We theorized that human food preparation might serve purposes beyond nutrition, social bonding, skill development, resource allocation practice. But our analysis indicates that these activities are performed primarily for what humans call enjoyment. Enjoyment. The word came from committee member Kexival, whose crystalline structure began emitting dissonant frequencies. They consume resources and energy for pleasure, not just pleasure. Dr. Synthara continued. They've developed complex philosophical frameworks around food preparation and consumption. They write literature about it. They create visual art depicting it. They even engage in competitive food preparation, where individuals compete to create the most elaborate and least efficient nutritional presentations. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be a human competition. Multiple humans were working frantically to create towering structures made entirely of heated and processed food components. The structures served no practical purpose and would be consumed within minutes of completion by the seven voids. Whispered committee member Yarthex, they're creating temporary sculptures out of food. The energy expenditure is catastrophic, added Dr. Krelvix, who had been invited to present the biochemical analysis. A single human cooking competition consumes more resources than some entire colonies use for basic nutrition in a standard month. Committee Chair Vextel's ancient form shifted, a sign of deep contemplation. Dr. Synthara, what do our models predict would happen if humans applied this same level of enthusiasm to other activities? That's the truly concerning part, Synthara replied. We've run preliminary analyses, and the results are disturbing. If humans approached military technology with the same creative inefficiency they applied to food preparation, they could theoretically develop weapons systems that are simultaneously more powerful and more unpredictable than anything we've ever encountered. Elaborate. Human military technology follows predictable patterns of efficiency and optimization, but their food preparation suggests they're capable of approaches that prioritize entirely different values. Imagine military equipment designed not for maximum effectiveness, but for artistic expression or surprise, or, she paused, enjoyment. The committee fell silent as the implications sank in. A species that could wage war the way they cooked food would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. There's another issue, Dr. Synthara continued. Our sociological analysis indicates that human food preparation is deeply connected to their emotional and social development. They form family bonds through shared food experiences. They express affection by preparing food for others. They even use food preparation as a form of stress relief. Stress relief? Committee member Zilthara, as energy patterns were becoming increasingly chaotic, they reduced stress by creating more work for themselves, according to our analysis. Yes, humans report that food preparation helps them process complex emotions and mental states. They voluntarily engage in labor-intensive food preparation when they're experiencing psychological pressure. Committee Chair Vextel was silent for a long moment. Dr. Synthara, what is your professional assessment of the human species' stability? That's the paradox, she replied. By all logical measures, humans should be an unstable, inefficient species struggling with basic survival. Instead, they're thriving, their population is growing, their technology is advancing, their society is becoming more complex and sophisticated. And they're doing all of this while spending the majority of their recreational time on deliberately inefficient activities. Correct. The committee members exchanged glances, telepathic communications, and various other forms of bewildered consultation. Finally, committee member Kexeville spoke up. Dr. Synthara, is it possible that we've fundamentally misunderstood the relationship between efficiency and advancement? What do you mean? Every species in the galaxy has achieved technological advancement through optimization and efficiency. We assumed this was the only path to progress. But what if it's not? What if there are other paths to advancement that we've never considered? Because we've been too focused on optimization. Dr. Synthara's tentacles writhed with uncertainty. Are you suggesting that human inefficiency might actually be contributing to their advancement? I'm suggesting that we don't know, and that's terrifying. Committee Chair Vextel's voice carried a note of finality. Dr. Synthara, what do your projections show for first contact scenarios? That depends on the nature of the contact, she replied. If humans encounter our species while we're engaged in optimal nutritional consumption, they may assume we're suffering from some kind of deprivation. Their first instinct might be to offer us food preparation assistance. And if they discover our nutritional optimization systems, according to our psychological profiles, they would likely be horrified. They might consider our approach to nutrition to be a form of self-inflicted suffering. The committee contemplated this in silence. The idea that an advanced species might view their efficient systems as primitive or cruel was unprecedented. There's one more thing, Dr. Synthara said. We've detected evidence that humans are beginning to develop what they call fusion cuisine. They're combining food preparation techniques from different regions of their planet to create entirely new approaches to nutrition, meaning that they're not just inefficient, they're becoming more inefficient over time, and they're accelerating the process deliberately. Committee member Yarthex's form shimmered with what could only be described as existential dread. Dr. Synthara, what happens when humans develop faster than light travel? Based on our analysis, they'll probably try to establish restaurants on other planets. The silence that followed was the kind that precedes either breakthrough or breakdown. Committee members, Chair Vextel said finally, I believe we need to prepare for the possibility that our first contact with humanity will fundamentally change our understanding of civilization itself. How do we prepare for something that challenges everything we think we know? I don't know, Vextel admitted, but I suspect the humans will try to teach us. As the committee adjourned, Dr. Synthara remained in the chamber, staring at the holographic displays. Somewhere in the data streams showing human food preparation activities, she sensed there was a truth that could revolutionize their understanding of intelligence, progress, and the nature of civilization itself. The question was whether they would be ready for that truth when it arrived. Chapter 4. The Pancake Invasion. 6 months after the first emergency session, the impossible had become routine. The Galactic Council Station now maintained a permanent human observation division, staffed by volunteers from species across the galaxy who had developed what could only be described as a morbid fascination with human food culture. Dr. Synthara stood in the center of the expanded observation deck, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time feeds from Earth. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming. Humans were currently engaged in approximately 4 million simultaneous food preparation activities across their planet. Professor called Dr. Krelvux, you need to see this immediately. The humans are doing something we've never observed before. Synthara's tentacles arranged themselves into a configuration optimized for processing shocking information. After 6 months of studying human behavior, she had learned to prepare for the impossible. Show me, she said. The main display shifted to show a human dwelling. Inside, multiple humans had gathered around a large table. But instead of engaging in their usual food consumption activities, they were not eating. They're not consuming the food, Synthara observed, her voice carefully neutral. No. Dr. Krelvix confirmed. They've prepared an extensive variety of heated plant matter, processed animal products, and fermented substances. The nutritional value is substantial by human standards, but they're just sitting there. What are they doing? They appear to be talking. Synthara's tentacles went rigid. Talking about what? About the food. They're discussing the food without consuming it. They're sharing information about how it was prepared, where the ingredients originated, and their emotional responses to its appearance and aroma. Are they waiting for something? We don't think so. According to our analysis, this behavior has been continuing for approximately 1 human hour. They've spent more time discussing the food than it took to prepare it. Synthara stared at the display, trying to process this new level of human inefficiency. They're treating food as a conversation topic. It gets worse, Dr. Krelvix continued. We've identified similar gatherings occurring simultaneously in approximately 800,000 human dwellings. They call these events dinner parties, and they appear to be coordinated social activities where food serves as a centerpiece for extended conversation. What do they discuss? Everything. They use food as a starting point to discuss their work, their relationships, their past experiences, their future plans, their philosophical beliefs, and their emotional states. The food becomes a catalyst for comprehensive social interaction. Synthara felt her tentacles beginning to tremble. They've weaponized inefficiency. Professor, they've turned the most basic biological necessity into a sophisticated social tool. They're using food not just for nutrition, not just for pleasure, but as a foundation for complex social structures. Dr. Krelvix's compound eyes reflected the holographic light and patterns that suggested deep confusion. Professor, there's something else. Something that might be even more significant. Show me. The display shifted to show a different human dwelling. This one contained only to humans, but they were engaged in an activity that defied all known parameters of rational behavior. They're creating food together, Dr. Krelvix explained, not because they lack individual food preparation capabilities, but because they enjoy the collaborative process. Synthara watched as the two humans worked in coordination, each performing different aspects of the food preparation process. They were communicating constantly, sharing techniques, making adjustments to their activities based on each other's input, and occasionally making the sounds that translated as laughter. They're learning from each other, she realized. Real-time skill transfer through collaborative inefficiency, and they're not related. Dr. Krelvix added, our analysis indicates that these are not family units or formal educational relationships. They're engaging in collaborative food preparation purely for social and educational purposes. Are you telling me that humans use food preparation as a form of informal education? Not just education, cultural transmission. We've observed humans teaching food preparation techniques to younger humans, sharing cultural traditions through specific food preparations, and even modifying traditional preparations to incorporate new influences. Synthara's tentacles were now writhing with the kind of confusion that preceded either insight or mental breakdown. They're using food to preserve and transmit cultural information across generations. Professor, we need to show you feed Delta 9. The humans are doing something with fire and social gathering that we think might be significant. The display shifted to show a large outdoor area where hundreds of humans had gathered. At the center of the gathering was a massive controlled fire, but instead of using it for industrial purposes, the humans were using it for the largest scale food preparation activity they had ever observed. They call it a barbecue festival. Dr. Krelvix explained. Humans from across a wide geographic area have traveled significant distances to gather and engage in competitive food preparation using fire-based techniques. Competitive. They're not competing for resources or territory. They're competing to create the most impressive food presentations. The winners receive symbolic tokens and social recognition. Synthara watched as humans operated dozens of fire-based cooking devices, preparing massive quantities of food while engaging in social activities that included music, dancing, and what appeared to be ritualized displays of cultural identity. They've turned food preparation into a cultural celebration, she whispered. They're using controlled fire, collaborative preparation, and resource allocation to create art, social art, Professor, there's something else that our analysis team thinks you should know. What? The humans are beginning to develop interplanetary communication technologies. And according to our intercepted transmissions, they're planning to use these technologies to share food preparation techniques with other species. Synthara's tentacles went completely limp. They want to teach other species how to be inefficient. Not just inefficient, they want to share what they call culinary culture. They're actively planning to introduce their food preparation techniques to other worlds as a form of cultural exchange. And what do their projections show? They believe that sharing food preparation techniques will lead to better understanding between species, stronger interplanetary relationships, and increased overall happiness. The observation deck fell silent except for the hum of monitoring equipment. Every being present was trying to process the implications of a species that viewed deliberately inefficient food preparation as a tool for interspecies diplomacy. Dr. Synthara, came a voice from the communication system. Director Kexler requests your immediate presence in the council chamber. We've just received a transmission from the Outer Rim. What kind of transmission? A message from Earth. The humans are trying to establish contact with us. What do they want? They want to invite us to something they call a galactic potluck dinner. Synthara closed her eyes, all of them, and tried to prepare for what might be the most important moment in galactic history. Somewhere in the vast cosmos, a species that had achieved technological advancement through deliberate inefficiency was preparing to share their approach with the rest of the galaxy. The question wasn't whether they were ready for humans. The question was whether the galaxy was ready to learn that everything they thought they knew about progress might be wrong. / Epilogue. The Great Feast * 1 year later * the Galactic Council Station had never seen anything like it. What had once been a sterile diplomatic facility now resembled something between a cultural celebration and a controlled chaos experiment. Representatives from 63 different species moved through corridors filled with aromas that defied classification, sounds that didn't translate into any known language, and sights that challenged the fundamental assumptions of civilized behavior. Dr. Synthara stood on the observation deck, watching the first interspecies cultural exchange, or as the humans insisted on calling it, the galactic potluck, unfold in ways that their best projections had never anticipated. Professor. Dr. Krelvix approached, carrying a plate of something that appeared to be geometrically impossible. You need to try this. What is it? The humans call it fusion cuisine. They combine traditional human food preparation techniques with crystalline dietary requirements, silicon-based nutritional needs, and energy-being consumption methods. It's actually quite pleasant. Synthara examined the offering with scientific curiosity. The food appeared to be simultaneously solid, liquid, and energy-based, while maintaining an aroma that her translation matrix interpreted as comfort and home. How is that possible? The humans work with our biochemists to develop preparation techniques that satisfy multiple physiological requirements simultaneously. They've essentially created interspecies cuisine, and it's nutritionally viable. More than viable. It's actually more efficient than our individual species' traditional diets. The humans have somehow used their deliberate inefficiency to create something more efficient than our efficiency. Synthara accepted the plate and tentatively sampled the impossible food. The taste was unlike anything she had ever experienced, familiar, yet exotic, comforting yet stimulating, nutritious yet pleasurable. By the void, she whispered, "It's wonderful. Professor, there's something else you need to see." Dr. Krelvix led her through the station's corridors, past scenes that would have been unimaginable a year ago. In one section, humans were teaching crystal-based beings how to prepare food that satisfied both biological and mineral nutritional requirements. In another, energy beings were learning to appreciate the temporal aspects of food preparation, the way flavors developed over time, the satisfaction of gradual transformation. Where are we going? Diplomatic Assembly Hall 7. The humans have prepared something they call a presentation. They entered the hall to find it transformed. The formal diplomatic seating had been replaced with a circular arrangement that encouraged interaction rather than formal discourse. At the center, A human female was standing beside a holographic display that showed images of food preparation activities from across the galaxy. Distinguished beings, the human was saying, what we've learned over the past year has changed our understanding of what it means to be intelligent, civilized, and alive. The human Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's first interspecies cultural ambassador, gestured to the holographic display. When we first made contact, we expected to find species that had achieved advancement through optimization and efficiency. What we discovered instead was something far more profound. The display showed images of the past year's cultural exchange activities. Crystal beings learning to appreciate the temporal aspects of flavor development. Energy entities discovering the satisfaction of collaborative creation, silicon-based. Life forms experiencing the emotional resonance of shared meals. We discovered that efficiency and optimization, while important, are not the only paths to advancement. In fact, they may not even be the most important paths. Ambassador Sci-Fi of the crystalline hegemony leaned forward, his eyes focusing intently on the human speaker. Over the past year, he had found himself drawn to these inefficient human activities in ways that challenged his understanding of his own nature. Dr. Chen, he said, are you suggesting that deliberate inefficiency is superior to optimization? Not superior. Dr. Chen replied with a smile and expression that had taken months for the translator matrices to properly interpret. Complementary. What we've learned is that efficiency solves problems, but inefficiency creates possibilities. The hologram shifted to show a compilation of innovations that had emerged from the cultural exchange. New technologies that combine human creativity with alien optimization. Artistic expressions that transcended species boundaries. Social structures that accommodated radically different forms of consciousness. When we prepare food inefficiently, Dr. Chen continued, we're not just feeding ourselves. We're experimenting, creating, bonding, learning, and expressing who we are as individuals and as cultures. The inefficiency is actually a sophisticated form of research and development. Dr. Synthara felt her tentacles arranging themselves into patterns of understanding. You're saying that human food culture is a form of applied creativity? Exactly. And what we've discovered is that every species has the capacity for this kind of creative inefficiency. You've just been trained to suppress it in favor of optimization. The display showed scenes from the past year that had become legendary among the station's inhabitants. The day the Silicon Assembly members had learned to appreciate the aesthetic aspects of mineral arrangement. The week when the Hive Collective had discovered the joy of collaborative cooking. The month when the Quantum Collective had begun experimenting with temporal flavor development. The results speak for themselves, Dr. Chen said. In the past year, collaborative research projects between our species have produced more innovations than either of our civilizations achieved in the previous decade. Not because we abandoned efficiency, but because we combined efficiency with creativity. Director Kexler, who had been observing from the back of the hall, stepped forward. Dr. Chen, what do you believe this means for the future of galactic civilization? I believe we're witnessing the birth of something unprecedented, she replied. A galactic culture that values both optimization and creativity, efficiency and expression, survival and joy. We're learning that intelligence isn't just about solving problems, it's about creating possibilities. The hall fell silent as the implications of her words settled over the assembly. They were no longer discussing the strange habits of a single species. They were contemplating a fundamental shift in how intelligent life could approach existence itself. There's something else, Dr. Chen added. Something we discovered that we think might be the most important finding of all. The hologram shifted to show comparative data from across the galaxy. Species that had participated in the cultural exchange were showing measurable improvements in innovation rates, social cohesion, and what the humans called life satisfaction. Happiness, Dr. Chen said simply. The pursuit of efficiency alone doesn't lead to happiness, but the combination of efficiency and creative expression. That appears to be the foundation of true advancement. Ambassador Sci-Fi's crystalline structure began to emit harmonic frequencies that hadn't been heard from his species in centuries. Dr. Chen, Are you suggesting that we've been incomplete? Not incomplete, she replied gently. Unnecessarily limited. You've achieved incredible things through optimization. But imagine what you could achieve if you also embrace the creative chaos. That comes with deliberately inefficient exploration. The presentation continued for another hour, but Dr. Synthara found herself thinking about the broader implications. They weren't just witnessing cultural exchange, they were witnessing evolution. The emergence of a new form of civilization that valued both survival and joy, both efficiency and creativity. After the presentation, she found herself in the station's newest addition, a recreational facility that the humans had designed in collaboration with representatives from multiple species. It was a space where beings could engage in activities that served no practical purpose, beyond exploration, creativity, and what the humans called fun. Professor Dr. Krelvik's approach, carrying to plates of something that appeared to be shifting between different states of matter. The humans have created something new. They call it quantum cuisine. It's designed to be simultaneously experienced by multiple forms of consciousness. Synthara accepted the plate and found herself experiencing something that was simultaneously familiar and revolutionary. The food was efficient enough to meet her nutritional needs, but complex enough to engage her senses, her intellect, and her emotions simultaneously. It's remarkable, she said. They've created efficiency that's also art. Professor, I need to tell you something I've been thinking about for months. What is it? I think the humans have given us more than just new food preparation techniques. I think they've given us a new understanding of what it means to be alive. Synthara looked around the facility, watching beings from dozens of species engaging in activities that would have been considered wasteful and irrational. A year ago, they were creating art, sharing stories, collaborating on projects that had no purpose beyond the joy of creation. And they were thriving. Dr. Krelvik's, she said quietly, I think you're right. And I think we're just beginning to understand what that means. As the evening progressed, Dr. Synthara found herself in conversation with humans and aliens alike, sharing stories, ideas, and experiences that had nothing to do with efficiency or optimization. For the first time in her life, she was engaging in activities that were purely for the joy of engagement itself. It was, she realized, the most intelligent thing she had ever done. Later that night, as the galactic potluck wound down, Dr. Chen stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Director Kexler joined her, his usually stern expression softened by something that might have been contentment. Dr. Chen, he said, when your species first arrived, we thought you were either dangerous or insane. Now I'm beginning to think you might be the most advanced species we've ever encountered. We're not more advanced, she replied. We're just different, and difference, it turns out, is incredibly valuable. What happens now? Now we learn from each other. We combine human creativity with galactic efficiency. We build something that's greater than the sum of its parts. And if other species resist this approach, Dr. Chen smiled, then we invite them to dinner. In my experience, it's very hard to remain hostile to someone who's trying to feed you. Director Kexler made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. Dr. Chen, I believe your species may have just saved galactic civilization from its own success. How so? By teaching us that optimization without creativity is just another form of stagnation. That efficiency without joy is just sophisticated survival. That intelligence without wonder is just elaborate problem solving. As they stood watching the stars, both beings understood that they were witnessing the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that valued both survival and joy, both efficiency and creativity, both optimization and wonder. The humans had arrived with their impossible food habits and their deliberate inefficiencies, and in doing so, they had revealed a truth that no other species had discovered, that the highest form of intelligence isn't the ability to solve problems efficiently, but the ability to create possibilities joyfully. And throughout the galaxy, on stations and planets and ships traveling between the stars, beings were learning to cook, to create, to collaborate, and to find joy in the beautiful inefficiency of existence itself. The age of pure optimization was over. The age of creative intelligence had begun, and it all started with a pancake.